Rake Neethling's story is not just that of a great sportsman. It's the tale of a little boy from Bloemfontein that was not afraid to dream big.
He was a sports guy.
Rake was a hard worker.
He broke one record after the other.
If anybody wants to beat us, they're going to have to break the world record.
Even if his dreams meant being the best in the world.
It doesn't really matter how big you are, it matters how big your heart is.
It was evident that he had very, very special talent.
I don't think there's anybody that's considered great that was inconsistent.
His true struggle, though, was outside of the pool. He overcame great odds and family tragedy to become a sporting hero.
Like, nothing could have prepared us for it.
He told us more than once he was ready to give up.
People used to rock up at the house, yeah, with tears.
I don't want to be at home because there was always emotions there. I was taught from a very young age, if you do something, you're going to do it right. Nothing special, just a guy that had a dream. Everything on this one moment. The disappointment, I can feel it now. It's like my world ended. Swimming was my solace. It doesn't really matter how big you are, it matters how big your heart is. I'm Rake Neethling, and this is my story.
It's in the heartland of South Africa's platteland, where Rake Neethling Sr. and son Marie Lotz are to marry. On the 17th of November 1977, they welcome their firstborn, Rake Jr., into the world.
Every parent has got a lot of dreams, especially with your firstborn child. They were in the pool, Rake had swimming age on, and there was a little boy, the neighbour's domestic worker's little boy. He always played with him, soccer, rugby, cricket. He joined him in the pool and he pulled Rake down.
Despite coming close to drowning, both boys survive.
But fortunately, the older guys saw what happened.
It was very clear that I couldn't, that I wasn't water safe. And my mom obviously freaked out. This Neethling needed to learn how to swim.
And the next week he started with swimming lessons.
It could have been a catastrophic event, but it turned out something that also really changed my life.
Bloemfontein in the 1970s was an alluring city. It drew young people from the other small dorpies, and Rake's parents were no exception.
I think my family comes from very humble beginnings. My father grew up on a farm. He rode a horse to school. On my mother's side, they came from a town called Kroonstad. We were quite typical Afrikaner family, definitely not from a sporting background.
Rake soon had a sibling, his sister Elsha, who was 3 years his junior. The two children had a close bond from early on.
My childhood was idyllic. We grew up in the same house. I remember Sundays when my parents took a nap in the afternoon. Rake and I used to be naughty, and we'd climb Naval Hill and use the ostriches and get up to no good.
The two kids were really amazing. Rake was a sports guy. He showed very good potential in all the sport that he participated in.
As soon as school came out, it was the rugby ball out, and we were playing touch rugby and normal rugby and cricket and tennis.
I remember when we were little and he wanted to do cricket and he wanted to do rugby and swimming. My parents said one thing to us: if you start a new sport, you must finish it.
Yeah, certainly everything that I did, I was taught from a very young age. If you do something, you're going to do it right. And it's worth doing right and doing properly.
Although 7-year-old Rake was small in stature, he showed a fighting spirit.
When I went to the Craven Week in primary school, I was the second smallest forward out of a couple of hundred boys there.
He was a natural athlete and excelled in sport.
He had to make a decision between rugby and swimming, and he chose swimming.
As an 8-year-old, he showed great tenacity to come from behind to beat an older swimmer. That race was the beginning of a dream for Olympic glory.
Rake took to the water, and I think water chose him.
There were a couple of moments where I kind of realized that what you can achieve when you really go to that place inside and you go and summon those emotions.
You know, I remember my dad telling us how his friends used to ask, "Now, Reiki, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And Reiki would say, "I'm going to be an Olympic champion." And you know, it's like this typical suburban standing around a braai. Most little boys don't think about that, and he had that in mind already.
Growing up in a time when South Africa was still excluded from the international sporting arena did not stop his dream.
The thing with Ryk is when he's got a dream and people tell him he can't do it, then he's more determined to prove people wrong.
It was evident that he had very, very special talent. When he was 9 years old, he broke the South African 10 and under age group record.
Simon Gray had swum for Great Britain at the Moscow Olympic Games in the 400 and 1500 metre freestyle. Because of South Africa's Olympic isolation, that experience was crucial for young Ryk.
So I saw Ryk, he was only 9, 10 years old then. I saw a lot of potential. I saw him swim galas. In 1989, his father approached me and asked me if I'm interested in taking Ryk over under my hands and guide him through his swimming career as he wanted to get to the Olympics.
So moved over to Simon, and that definitely was the next thrust for me and for my career.
In the 1980s, Bloemfontein had a thriving sporting community. The ambition was infectious.
Somewhere like Zola Budd, who was from Bloemfontein, and I would see her on my way to swimming practice in the afternoon sometimes. My parents would get excited, and I would get excited.
In 1990, Ryk's sister Jean-Marie is born. The youngest Neethling would go on to become the youngest swimmer to represent South Africa at the Commonwealth Games. Grey College is an illustrious school with more than 150 years of history. The school is an incubator of sporting talent, with many of the pupils going on to achieve international honours.
I started dreaming at Grey College. It's where it all started for me.
I met Rykie when he was still a small boy, and he was a fantastic schoolboy because as he is today, he was then very grateful for the talent and the opportunities he's had.
The schooling system is very behind sports. Unisi, Oranje, Grey College.
One of our old boys, W.A. de Klerk, a very famous Afrikaans writer, and he once wrote a piece for a book for the school, and he said, "Character develops among people. Achievement develops on your own, where you have to work where other people don't even see you work."
I don't think there's any 10-year-old kid that wants to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning in the winter in Bloemfontein and they want to go swim. But after I saw what hard work can do and goal setting, then it became easy for me to fall into that routine.
We were family friends with the Cronje family.
I call him Rykie. He grew up in front of me, and I've admired little Rykie.
Hansie Cronje was head boy at Grey College and played provincial cricket for the Free State. In 1994, he became the second youngest South African cricket captain.
The relationship between them was excellent. Rykie was there for Hansie, and Hansie was there for Rykie.
He was about 8 years older than me, and through the exams, I would go stay with the Cronje family. As bad as exams can be, for me it was a magical time because afternoons I would just go lay in his room. He would have all his awards and jerseys, and the players would come in almost on a daily basis. Alan Donald was a youngster, Sylvester Clark played for the Free State, and I was always around these guys.
When the Indians were here the first time in 1992, Hansie invited the Indian team to our house, and he said, "Let's invite the Neethlings here as well. He wants Rykie to meet the Indians."
These are moments that I'll never forget in my life.
And there was Rykie as a young schoolboy amongst the greats of the world, the Tendulkars, Kapil Dev.
And I sat next to Sachin Tendulkar. He was also just a youngster at that point, and to be immersed in that, all that positivity again, and just that ambition. For me, it was like being surrounded by international stars.
He started realizing that he could also become a top a real top sportsman, not only in South Africa, but at the world stage.
I feel very blessed that I was able to have those experiences.
At the age of 14, Rake's dream of going to the Olympics became more realistic when South Africa was readmitted to the Olympic arena. He was still small in stature, but believed that his dedication, devotion and discipline would edge him closer to his childhood dream.
Rake was a hard worker. When we set goals for different sets that we had to do, he stuck to them. You know, if I told him to jump 10 foot, he jumped 10 foot. He wasn't a difficult person to coach because he had that passion.
Rake used to train like maybe 8 hours a day. You know, early in the morning, 5 o'clock, and those Bloemfontein winters, they're vicious. I went once and I remember the water was so cool, it was like fog. And like you just see these arms coming out.
Just before he turned 16, he made the South African team. In that year, he won his first national championships in the 1500 meter.
It started because I was so small when I was younger. Up until I was 16 years old, I was one of the smallest boys in my age group, so I couldn't compete with the big guys. And Simon was my coach he was a long distance swimmer, so I was pushed into the long distance thing because over 1500 meters, it doesn't really matter how big you are, it matters how big your heart is. So that's how I got into distance swimming. And then when I started growing,
he became a big boy. He was about 5'6". And at the end of the next year, he was 6 foot.
Now I could compete with the big guys, but I was in the distance kind of mentality.
I coached Rake to break my South African record, which I held for 21 years.
Broke one record after the other, here at Grey, in the Free State, and even later on in South Africa.
But Rake could not reach his dreams on his own. He needed the immense support of his family, who passionately believed in him.
We did everything as far as we could do. We supported him. We qualified ourselves as swimming officials just to show the support. You know, there was no pushing. If he needs us, we are there.
Everything revolved around him. The sacrifices my mom and my dad made, they lived basically for my brother. Every holiday they couldn't go where they wanted to go because there had to be a swimming pool, you know, a 50-meter swimming pool for him.
Then, in an instant, the lives of the Neethling family changed forever. The unthinkable happened.
Everything changed on that day in January '94.
There was a competition on the Saturday, my sister swam.
She was also a good swimmer, and wonderful days.
I also had a dream to be a big swimmer.
She won the best junior award, but she was complaining that she couldn't see, she was throwing up. And on the next day, she was completely paralyzed. My dad had to pick her out of bed, take her to the hospital, and I only learned a couple of years ago, but the doctor told my dad that the kind of tumor is so aggressive that she's only got about 10 days left to live, and they can't do anything for her.
We were devastated, you know. You couldn't believe that something like that could happen to you.
Like, nothing could have prepared us for it. Our lives shattered apart. And
you don't even think about dreaded diseases like cancer. That's something that happened to other people, not to us.
People used to rock up at the house here and with tears, you know, like crying and saying goodbye to me. And everyone thought I wasn't going to live long.
I didn't want to be at home because there was always emotions there. People were always crying and screaming sometimes.
I remember him withdrawing into himself, and I remember that day on the Sunday that they diagnosed me in '94. And I remember getting in his Beetle and going swimming. I think he wanted to find out what was wrong, but he didn't really want to because he knew it was bad. I remember him tumble turning. That's when you make a turn like hard. Like his feet used to like hit the sides of the pool, you know, like, and swim up and down and up and down. And it was like a way to get rid of his frustration.
Elsha is diagnosed with aggressive brain cancer. and her parents cannot believe that nothing can be done for her medically.
My dad obviously said it's impossible. He can't accept that nothing can be done for my sister, and he went for other opinions. We found a doctor in Johannesburg, and he was willing to operate on my sister.
Ryke's parents left Bloemfontein with Elsje to immediately go for treatment in Johannesburg, where Elsje was to have brain surgery for the first time. This was to have a profound impact on Ryke's life.
My parents were always there for him, but I think he sort of knew, no, I've got to put on my big boy pants.
Up until that point, my parents, pushed me quite a bit. They pulled me along, but all of a sudden, all of that was gone, and it was all up to me. I had to get to training. I had to look after myself. I had to enter myself into competitions.
Ryke had to basically fend for himself in his own way.
It was a very, very difficult time because he still had to continue with his career while worrying about his sister.
But we know that it was very, very tough for him as well. I think that he tried to make it easier for us.
Her life changed overnight, and I know that that mine can also change, and I must make every day count.
When Ryke was in matric, he realized that if he really wants to do something, he'll have to go overseas to go and swim there.
So along with this dream of going to the Olympics, I had a dream of going to America, to go to an American university, and to go get a degree there and to swim.
I always advise my swimmers that if you can get an American scholarship, go for it.
There were offers from 5 universities.
Ryke gets a scholarship offer from the University of Arizona. He has to decide between furthering his career or staying with his family, who is drowning in uncertainty over Elsje's dire health condition.
And I started talking to a guy with the name of Frank Bush, who was the head coach at the University of Arizona. And from the first time I opened the prospectus, I just knew this was the place.
If I look back now, my focus was just to stay alive.
Yeah, my sister had, I think my sister had 3 brain operations.
She was a really, really brave little girl.
So the family was going through all that, and I was looking to go off to America, trying to qualify for the Olympics. All huge things in any family's life.
And I think his focus was to reach his dreams.
It's a full scholarship for 5 years. I think my dad was excited. I think my mom, it came on her a little bit fast when I left. It became a reality,
It was scary because, I was sick, but you just do it, and it's a leap of faith.
It was probably the best thing that happened to my swimming, and I don't mean that with any disrespect to my sister.
He used Elsje's condition to motivate himself.
Swimming was my solace. It was my escape.
At age 19, Ryke's dream comes true. He qualifies for the 1500-meter freestyle and earns a place in the South African swimming team for the Atlanta Olympics. Immediately after the Games, Ryke will enroll at the University of Arizona.
He did very well in that 1500 as well. He came 5th, and for me, it felt like he was winning. Now, at the Olympic Games, you can't go down to a swimmer and chat to him and touch him. And you leave this guy, he's 18 years old, and you won't see him again. And you have to talk to him through a fence and say goodbye and best for everything and turn back and leave. That was really very, very hard.
On the flight there, it really hit home that this is my new life here. I couldn't really speak English very well. I was in Afrikaans class my whole life, and so all of a sudden now I have to take classes, in English. I was always, quite shy. I stuttered quite a bit when I was in high school.
The stuttering was an issue for him.
Rake's newfound freedom coincided with the dreams and aspirations of the new South Africa. But he arrived at the University of Arizona with a naive outlook on his country.
When I arrived there, they thought I was going to be black. When you do say something in class, they ask you where you're from, and you say you're from South Africa in 1996. Quite hostile.
He told us more than once he was ready to give up, to come home. But two things stopped him from that. He won't give up that easy. And then the other thing is, if Elsa could fight this disease in the way she did, he could fight the conditions that I have to live with.
Rake would have to come to terms with his roots as an Afrikaner and someone that has benefited from apartheid. He is an outsider and in a foreign environment for the first time in his life.
And you get bombarded with questions, and you learn to stand up for yourself. And in the beginning, you are in denial. I started swimming, and life experience was also to learn about the real history of my country. I also realized that in America, if you're not going to speak up, they're going to trample over you.
He just carried on, and eventually things worked out for him.
Rake cements his swimming reputation. He leads by example and becomes the university's youngest swimming captain, in the process becoming the 9 times National Collegiate Athletic Association's champion and the University of Arizona's Athlete of the Century.
I think I had my best swimming years at the University of Arizona. When I got there, we got 16th out of about 350 universities, which is not bad, but where I come from, that wasn't good enough. My second year, we got 6th place. In my third year, we got 4th place, and my last year, we got 3rd place.
Rake had grown up a lot. He set himself more goals to achieve his next Olympics, and he was doing really well at the university.
Rake climbed the world rankings and qualified for the 2000 Sydney Olympics. But the goal had become more ambitious. He wanted an Olympic medal.
I went to Sydney. I was ranked top 3 in the world in 3 events. I was in the best shape of my life. I don't think you can be more fit than I was.
The hopes were really high that he will at least get a medal.
In the final, thought I had a shot for a medal. And I ended 5th. You work so hard, you're away from your family, and everything that happened with my sister, she was still getting treatment, and you have all these high hopes. You pin everything on this one moment. You don't even look at life afterwards, because you're hoping that you win and all your dreams come true afterwards. And it didn't.
The 1500-meter freestyle was the best swim of his life, and he broke both the South African and African records. But it was still not good enough to get him onto the podium.
That was really very, very hard. You try and keep a straight face.
The disappointment, I can feel it now still, when I talk about it.
I know after Sydney, Rake felt that he was, a failure.
And it's a terrible place to be. I left the Olympics before the end. It was like my world ended,
You can't always be positive, and you can't always be the hero, and you're allowed to, take a step back, look at yourself.
And I went to my grandparents' farm. I was pretty much sick and tired of swimming, and I decided I was going to quit.
In that conscious decision he made, it was sort of like he lost a part of himself.
I said, okay, now I'm going to graduate and I'm going to start working, and that's it. That's it for swimming.
Rake solely focused on his industrial psychology degree and graduated cum laude. He turned his back on swimming and pursued a life in the corporate world in Arizona.
Now I was in a new world. And I was making, great strides, and I worked really hard, and I could see the improvement. Where in swimming, I was training so hard, and I was looking for inches. I gained a lot of weight, probably about maybe 30 kilograms. Didn't see my coaches, didn't see my teammates, didn't touch the water for a good 9 months. I was just in the corporate world. But there was something missing, and and I almost couldn't look at myself in the mirror because I knew that I was giving up on a dream, and I was being a quitter.
He wasn't anything without trying.
We had a diving pool at the university that was about 35 to 40 degrees. And I would just jump in there and I would swim 10 minutes. I started to lose a little bit of weight, and as the months went on, I started to swim a little bit faster in this jacuzzi. It was about 10 meters long. And I liked the feel, and I started to play around. I was a kid again, not chasing this time. And
a lot of times I've also got to look into myself and find that reason to wake up, and swimming was Ryke's reason to move on. So he found that reason again, and he put everything into bouncing back.
I didn't make the decision to go to the Olympics yet. I was still hurt. I still had that hurt, and it was too big. But I just wanted to love swimming again.
It was a short break, and then he started trying again.
And I decided that I want to swim on my terms. I want to enjoy swimming again, and I was going to try to be a sprinter from now on.
Ryk makes a bold decision. Not only was he going to return to swimming, but he was going to shift his focus and become a short-distance swimmer.
You can never change a sprinter to a distance swimmer, but you can always change a distance swimmer to a sprinter.
Later on in my career, it was great because now I had the speed and I had the endurance, and that was really my big weapon. It was that I had this little bit of endurance. I could last 2 or 3 seconds longer than the sprinters could. So then I started training myself, played a lot of basketball to get my legs stronger, and I started to race a little bit.
Ryk made his comeback at the 2002 Commonwealth Games, concentrating on the 50 and 100-meter freestyle events. He won a bronze medal in the 100-meter freestyle. The following year, the World Swimming Champs, the South African relay team, consisting of Ryk Neethling, Roland Schoeman, Lyndon Ferns, and Darian Townsend, came last in the final. But there was a lesson in the loss.
And we made a huddle, and we said, we're not going to feel like this again, and remember this feeling.
Ryk realized that he needed to swim full-time and be able to wholeheartedly concentrate on preparing for the 2004 Athens Olympic Games. He managed to secure sponsorship by 4 American businessmen who each paid him $250 a month.
So I quit my job, and I just had enough to get me to the Olympics. When I went to the Olympics, I was broke and very happy. I was happy that I could get there again, and that I was in a great space of mind.
The South African relay team trained in the USA, and their mindset began to shift towards a bolder, more American type of attitude.
After spending so much time in America, we had the audacity to think that we can actually win this medal, where the South African coaches and people back here, they didn't believe in us. If there's one thing that the Americans, they've got a self-confidence that they believe that they can do anything.
The mindset of becoming a team rather than individuals was not an easy shift. The rivalry between the swimmers, and especially Ryk and Roland, was no secret.
So for us to switch around from having that individual outlook to the team was a bit different for us, but like I said, we had nothing to lose. We had tried to do it on our own, and it didn't work multiple times. We failed at that. So this is the only option we had left, was actually to work together. Swimming is a very individual sport. When you stand on the blocks, it's just you. Yes, you have a coach and your family and your friends and your teammates are there to support you. But it's all up to you. You have to take responsibility afterwards. If it didn't go well, it's your responsibility. You have to be very selfish.
Unfortunately, it can be a bit lonely being the individual player, and when you don't swim well, everybody points a finger at you, and there's nowhere to hide.
We were 4 individuals. Myself and Roland, we had a very big rivalry. But for that year, we just said, we're going to work together and really try to be a team.
Swimmers with that attitude, winning isn't everything, it's the only thing.
Rake always had that strong mindset. When he set goals for himself, he always achieved the goals that he set. And each goal got harder and harder as he went along.
It's all about focus. That's something I learned from him, is to focus. It's like you see this tunnel and the goals in front of you, and on the sides, all the people yakking and trying to interfere with your focus.
The work that he and some of the others put in is amazing.
But talent alone doesn't give you the success. You must have the guts.
To have 4 guys in one race on a world level is very hard.
The heats was the morning and the finals in the evening.
So we were the only team that swam the same 4 guys in the morning and at night. The Americans had 3 fresh guys come in at night, which is a huge advantage. I've heard stories of some of the South African coaches, even after the morning where we almost broke the world record in the morning. We missed it by, I think, 0.3 of a second. Said, it's a pity they went so fast in the morning because they're not going to have anything left at night. There's this magic kind of happening that we are swimming faster than we ever have, but we know we are right on world record. If anybody wants to beat us, they're going to have to break the world record. Rowan had a great start, and he was in the lead. He had a half a body length lead.
I think that moment they dived in, like everyone just scattered away and went into their own directions. My mom couldn't cope, she ran away.
I was sitting here, my wife and Elsa wasn't, they were downstairs here and they were hiding.
Lyndon increased that lead, and Darren held the lead. We swam that race as one person. We knew exactly what each guy had to do.
And then we all gathered here on the 3rd swimmer, and when Rake had to dive in, we were all here. And then my mom ran away again.
And I remember myself calling, "Come Reiki," and then I would keep quiet, and I hear the commentator said, "Here comes Rick Neethling," and Rick Neethling.
The first 50 meters, you're feeling quite good. You don't feel too tired yet. As I came out of the turn and I saw the guys going into the turn, I knew there was no way that they were going to catch me. Then the fatigue begins to set in, and the last 15 meters is just very intense pain, and it feels like you're swimming in syrup or in honey.
We were busy coming in for training that afternoon, and we watched the final, and I just remember being in the gym and everybody going crazy and cheering and shouting, and it was sort of when you saw what it meant to the country and how excited people got about the Olympic Games. I really understood the magnitude of how big it was, and that I really wanted to achieve that one day.
And when they touched, the house was dead quiet. I just heard my dad. He sounded like a lion roaring. And my mom came in. My mom almost fainted. My dad was holding her, and we were all just crying.
It doesn't happen, very often, and it doesn't happen on that level at the final of the Olympic Games, that everything just clicks 100%.
They say the 2 most important days of your life is the day you're born and the day you realize why you were born.
That was a 20-year overnight success, that I like to call it.
He was so driven from an early age. Everyone just used to look on and think, this little boy is crazy, and I think it paid off.
All of a sudden, your life changes in a space of 3 minutes and 13 seconds.
He found us as soon as he could, and we were talking on the phone, we were crying, we were laughing, and it was amazing.
It was 20 years of work and sweat and lots of mistakes, lots of failure that went into it. Now I believe that failure is very necessary in one's life.
What Rake done, what he got right is 1 out of a million, and he's my hero. He's amazing.
The odds were really stacked against us, but we completely took it away from everybody. That whole day, I kind of had this feeling like, just remember everything that happens, because you're going to be talking about this for the rest of your life.
It was a perfect ending.
Rake's dream came true. He was an Olympic gold medalist, and he had achieved it as a team player. He had no idea how this was about to change the sport of swimming in South Africa for our future swimming stars.
When he arrived in South Africa, he was an instant hero in South Africa.
It was the first time in my life that I was a professional sportsman. Now all of a sudden you have sponsors, you have an agent.
After 2004, swimming was lifted to the top as a sport in South Africa.
Just as swimming, I think as a platform, he really raised and elevated the prestige of swimming and the level in South Africa that corporate sponsors started to come into South Africa. And I think he really opened that door for people like myself and Chad and all the swimmers coming forward that we are able to make a living out of the sport.
As a professional, Rake's passion is now his career. But he was also an oddity in the world of swimming.
I'm the only guy in the world to have swum in the final of the 100 and 1500. So now I had the confidence. So I decided to swim for another 4 more years.
With newfound fame, the riches of the world came knocking on Rake's door. The oil-rich country of Qatar was buying professional athletes, and they had their sights firmly on Rake.
Why I turned down the 50 million rand from Qatar. Being South African was definitely the X factor. Having the flag on my swimsuit or my cap. I'm very proud to say that whenever I represent my country, that I always swam my best. When I competed for myself, I always saved my best swims for my country. I'll be lying if I say I didn't second guess that decision. It's a lot of money, but I love my country more, and I think, for me, life is about passion, and I wouldn't have the same passion swimming for another country. So.
Incredibly, Rake participated in 4 successive Olympic Games. His last Olympics in Beijing in 2008 would also bring his family together.
We went to the Beijing Olympics, and I was busy getting radiation for my spinal cord tumor, and I just said no to the doctors. I don't care what they have to do, but I'm not going on. I'm going overseas because we're going to China.
Before retiring, he was instrumental in inspiring other young swimmers, like Cameron van der Berg, with his approach to swimming.
It was quite motivating and quite inspiring to see what professionalism he had. I learned a lot from just seeing the way that he did things, the way that he approached his training session, the stretching before, his nutrition, the sleep. He had such dedication, I think, and that's really what helped him excel.
I was very aware that I didn't want my life highlight to be when I was 26 years old. I wanted to have other highlights outside of the swimming pool.
Rake turned his sights on other goals.
I'm very glad that I had that work experience when I was in America, because now I think for an athlete it's very powerful if you can combine the two, a professional career and your sporting experience.
He became a capable and successful sporting agent.
The last couple of years after I quit swimming has been some of the best years of my life. I'm an agent to a couple of young athletes. I enjoy that. It gives me in touch with sport. I love to mentor.
Rake has been a very successful agent for me. He is, shall we say, the man that opens the doors for me and attains the sponsorship, and then I start to maintain the relationship so that I can also learn how to deal with sponsors and CEOs in general, which I think is a great life skill to have for the future going forward.
Shortly after his retirement, Rake started his own swimming schools.
We teach close to 2,000 kids a week how to be water safe, not just kids, but also adults. Sometimes there are grandparents that come with the grandkids and they learn together. It really makes my heart melt, and I'm just as proud as them, a 50-year-old person learning how to swim, than I am of Cameron winning an Olympic gold medal, because the fears are the same.
Rake's sister Elsha's battle with cancer has been relentless. She has survived 3 brain operations and 6 spinal cord surgeries after the spread of the cancer. She's been in remission for the past 5 years. Her fighting spirit is a testament to her passion for life. Even though she's gradually lost mobility, she has never given up hope.
People think cancer is a death sentence, but for me it was like a life sentence. This was my Olympics, just to stay alive. The funny thing about a wheelchair is you never think you're going to end up in one. I'd do anything to walk again. Now I'm back in the pool. The way the water makes your body feel, it's weightless. And the people don't judge you in the water. We're all the same under the water. And now for me, that's the only thing I can do as well. So I'm putting my mind to it. He's already done it, so he inspires me.
Rake has become the marketing director of Val de Vie, an upmarket polo housing estate on the outskirts of Paarl.
I've got a couple of other businesses as well, from making and selling wine to selling property, to doing events, organizing events, getting sponsors. I can honestly say this, that I feel like I've achieved many more Olympic medals in the business world. For me, that means just as much as that Olympic gold medal, things that I'm very proud of. One thing that is very important for me, just like it was when we swam, was to have a great team. Once I joined this beautiful estate, Val de Vie, we have a great team here, guys that I will also do anything for.
I have never seen him this happy, the way he is now.
I think my kind of mindset also works very well in this team. I set goals every day, and I just love working here.
I'm very proud of this boy, really. The way he handled, you can call it fame.
I'm very pleased that he's so successful. He really deserves that because he worked for it. Nothing fell in his lap. He didn't get it because he's Rykie Neethling, swimming star. He's just great inside.
I think somebody can be great and never have won anything.
Early in 2015, Rake visited Bloemfontein and, more symbolically, his old school, Grey College.
I started dreaming at Grey College. I'm nothing special, just a guy that had a dream and worked hard and had great people around me.
You know, he went to Grey the other day and he gave his gold medal to the school because a lot of kids walk around there and they have no clue that it's even possible.
Greatness is, for me, it's not attached to medals or trophies or records. I think greatness is like a state of mind. That medal really stands for a lot. It's my whole life, and the lessons that I learned, chasing that thing, for me is worth a lot.